Are you preparing to take a Praxis Teacher Certification exam? If so, one of the things that you've probably noticed is that no matter which test you are taking, you're being asked to answer a ton of questions in a relatively short period of time. My name is Bob, and I'm with Study.com, and in this video, I'm going to share my top 5 management techniques to help you pass your Praxis exam. Ready? Let's jump in. Praxis tests typically range from 60 to 90 minutes in length and often include 50 to 70 multiple choice questions that you need to answer before time runs out. Generally speaking, this means that you only get to spend a little over a minute per question, which I think we can all agree is not a lot of time. This means that managing your time effectively is just as important as being comfortable with the concepts and topics being covered on the test. So, in the interest of time, let's get into it. So my first strategy tip is one that I've already alluded to. I call it do the math. And just like it says, I want you to take the specific length and question count of your specific Praxis test and divide it to get an exact ratio of time per question. Let's use Praxis Core Math 5733 as an example. The test is 90 minutes long and has 56 questions, which means you get 1 minute and 35 seconds per question. As you start to go through practice questions, I encourage you to set a timer that goes off at the 1 minute and 35 second mark so that you get a true sense for how long that is. Some people also find it helpful to write that number on a sticky note and keep it in their field of view whenever they are doing practice questions or taking a practice test. On test day, you won't be able to have a stopwatch or even a watch on your wrist, so it's important to develop a rough sense and rhythm for the timing as you are preparing. Strategy tip number 2. Move on. So now that you have a sense for how long you should be spending on each problem, the next question is, well, what should you do if your timer runs out and you are still trying to figure out the correct answer? My advice? Move on. This may seem counterintuitive at first, as you have already spent some time with the problem and familiarized yourself with it. Won't it take even more time to come back to it later? This, for my friends studying for the Praxis economics exam, is the sunk cost fallacy. The reality is that you will face a range of question difficulty on your exam, as well as simply finding some questions harder than others based on what you remember on test day. If a question is already taking you longer than average to figure out, it's likely that it falls on the more difficult end of the spectrum, and your chances of getting it correct are already lower. By moving on, you're ensuring that you are giving yourself time to fully review and answer the easier questions on the exam and maximize your potential score. Building on my last tip, I call strategy tip number 3 passing, not perfecting. Remember, all Praxis tests are pass-fail exams, and there is no benefit to having a higher score than someone else who has also passed. Praxis keeps their scoring formula confidential, but in practice, we found that a passing score of, say, 160 translates to roughly 60% raw score on the multiple choice section. Passing scores differ by state and by test, but generally speaking, you'll need to get somewhere between a 60% and 70% in order to pass your Praxis exam. This means that you can miss roughly 1/3 of the questions on the test and still pass. So don't waste time or energy trying to get every single question correct. Don't feel badly for skipping over questions that you don't feel as confident on to ensure that you have enough time to tackle the questions you do know. Panicking will only waste time and affect your performance. Stay calm, read carefully, and answer to the best of your ability. My next tip is to read the answer choices first and then go back and read the question. This tip has the dual benefit of helping you save time and increasing your odds of selecting the right answer. By starting with the answer choices, you're grounding yourself in the available answers, which your brain will subconsciously remember as you go back and read through the question. This also helps you save time by allowing you to identify keywords or ideas from the answer choices first and then skim the question for relevant phrases. This is particularly helpful on reading or writing subject exams where you may be asked to rate a 300-word passage and then answer several questions about it. By starting with the answer choices, you can often skip over large chunks of the passage and home in on the exact section that the specific question is referencing. Finally, this strategy can also help you clarify what the question is asking you to do, as the answer choices will generally all be related in some way. Building on this is my 5th and final strategy tip. Eliminate obviously wrong answers. After reading the answers and then the question, it is likely that certain answers will jump out to you as being clearly wrong. These obviously wrong answers may not answer the question directly. They may express too strong of a view, or they may provide an answer that simply feels unlikely or unrealistic. Trust your gut and eliminate these answers immediately. There's no penalty for wrong answers or guessing on the Praxis exams, and so whenever you can remove incorrect answer choices, you increase your odds of getting the question right, even if you aren't entirely sure what the final answer is. One good rule of thumb is to look out for absolute terms. Statements with words like always, never, must, all, or none are usually incorrect, as things are rarely absolute, and the test writers like to pair these words with seemingly correct answers to trick you. And that concludes my 5 time management strategy tips for the Praxis exams. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought and if there are any tips that I didn't mention that have worked for you. And if you found this helpful, don't be shy. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you won't miss out when we drop new teacher test prep content. Happy studying and good luck on your Praxis exam.